Our conference Toastmaster for today. This gentleman decided that he wanted to be a police officer because it was exciting. And he had to get that excitement out of his blood. He thought he would do it for 6 months. 30 years later, he retired, and I don't think that excitement is out of his blood yet. He's currently a sales trainer, been a Toastmaster since 2007, is a family man, and a pretty good dancer. Please help me welcome your conference Toastmaster, Rudy Segovia!
Thank you, Madam District Governor. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Welcome to the 2013 Spring Conference, The Power to Inspire. Well, I love hearing inspirational speeches. I love reading inspirational books. I just finished one called Women Are From Mars and Men Are From Heaven. Please remind you to turn your cell phones off, please. Cell phones. And for the benefit of Mr. Andrew Little, I have to say it in Spanish. Por favor, apague su celular. We are in for a treat. Our keynote speaker first joined Cable Car Toastmasters in 1975. 2 years later, she was the second woman to ever keynote the International Toastmasters Convention. In case you don't know about Patricia Fripp, she's a Hall of Fame keynote speaker, executive speech coach, and sales presentation skills trainer. She was the National Speakers Association first woman president. Meeting and Conventions magazine named her one of the 10 most electrifying speakers in North America. Kiplinger's Personal Finance wrote, "The sixth way to invest in yourself is to attend a Patricia Fripp's presentation skills workshop." With 3 Toastmasters champions, Jeremy LaCroix, Ed Tate, Craig Valentine, Patricia is part of a faculty of the public speaking community called World's Champions Edge. As a gift, Patricia has brought you one of their CDs, and to discuss the preparing and presentations, powerful, persuasive presentations, please welcome our new best friend, Patricia Fripp. Oh, one more thing. Isn't she like the perfect size? And she's a good dancer.
Wouldn't we look perfect on the top of a wedding cake? We're the actual size. Oh. I'll never forget the first time I met Larry Mariotti. It was 10:45 on a Tuesday in 1972. I walked into the lobby of this very shishi men's hairstyling salon where I worked, and there he sat looking most uncomfortable. Someone had said to him, "You need Miss Fripp." Well, he didn't know if he needed Miss Fripp, but he was there. Larry Mariotti was a computer programmer for Levi Strauss. I guess you might say, Larry was a nerd. Long before I knew what one was or ever dreamed I would want to grow up and be one. I took him back to my booth. I shampooed, conditioned, cut, styled, sprayed, and fluffed. He looked good. He didn't know he looked good, but he looked good. He walked out of my salon with a bag of shampoo, conditioner, hairspray, hairbrush, never spent so much money in a barber shop in his entire life. And he went back to Levi Strauss. As he walked in, all the women said, "Larry." He went home that night and his wife said, "Larry." Really? Well, you'd imagine, after a couple of days, this positive response, he thought, well, maybe he did look good. He became a regular client, and what usually happens, when you improve one aspect of your life, or your speaking, or your appearance, it has a tendency to spread. Larry joined a gym, worked out, trimmed down, bought some trendier clothes, and started acting in a more outgoing way. So much so that Levi Strauss offered him a sales position even though he had no prior sales experience. Larry Mariottini turned out to be the best salesperson in that division. They cut his territory 5 times, and he still sold more than everybody else. Now, I know what you're thinking. This Fripp woman wants to take full credit for transforming this man's life, getting him a better paid job, and shall we say, more attention at home. Well, obviously, Larry Mariottini had something to do with it, but consider this. Every day when I got up as a hairstylist, I could look at my job as one of 2 ways. Either one, I have 16 heads of hair to cut, or 2, as I chose to, I have the opportunity to positively impact people's lives. So no matter whatever it is we do, or any performance or speech or coaching session we deliver, let us always focus on the contribution we can make to others, and it helps overcome the frustrations and the trials and tribulations that go with everyday living and interacting in our business roles. Every presentation needs to start with a good aim. Grab the audience. And I believe that every Toastmaster, an ambitious, novice, intermediate, and professional speaker can better prepare, present powerful, persuasive presentations. You have to come out punching. Grab the audience. Consider the first 30 seconds and the last 30 seconds parts of your presentation that they really will remember. It will set the tone. Now also, as you heard in my opening story, I started as a hairstylist. What you heard from the magnificent conference head dance coach is that I now enjoy a very successful speaking, consulting, and coaching career. So perhaps you can see what Toastmasters did for this hairstylist was help me develop the skills that could take me anywhere I wanted to go. And that will be true for you, whatever your ambition is. Now, there's another reason I love my Larry Mariottini story, apart from the fact that Larry Mariottini is so much fun to say, is that it gives you a perfect example of what I recommend you put into your stories. Because not only does a good speech have to start well, it has to be full of at least 1, 2, or 3 good stories, depending on how long your presentation is. The secret of good presentations, or good stories, is we have to populate our stories with flesh and blood characters that other people can relate to. They might not always relate to us as a speaker. This particular, the background experience, however, they often relate to the characters that they hear about. Now notice, when I talk about Larry was a nerd, he was uncomfortable, you laughed, because you can imagine what a nerd looked like in 1972, and probably pocket protector and polyester somewhere came into your vision. However, you don't make the star of your story bad. Remember I said long before I knew what was and dreamed I would want to grow up and be one, because unless you have some technical knowledge, you cannot survive in this world. Now, also, people always want to know about delivering your message, and I'm a great believer that at the beginning of your presentation, always stand still. When people are getting used to you, getting used to your voice. And if you are wandering around aimlessly on the stage, or think being dynamic is walking up and down the entire time, you in fact are distracting from the power and the magic of your well-chosen words. Now, it also gives you a time to move, if you wish to, on movement-specific phrases. If you will remember, I walked into the lobby of this very she men's hairstyling salon. I took Larry back to my booth. Now, when I'm shampoo, condition, cut, style, spray, and fluffed his hair, obviously I am standing in my booth. If I was wandering around aimlessly, the picture that you see, because people remember the images you create with your words, my movement would distract from the picture, and there will be a disconnect with the audience. Then again, he walked out of my salon with a bag of shampoo, conditioner, hairspray, and hairbrush. Now, when he walked into Levi Strauss, can you imagine him standing near the reception desk and all the women going, "Oh, Larry"? Now, if he walked into his home in the evening and his wife said, "Larry," he is going to stand there being admired. He is not going to race and turn on television and read the paper. So can you see very simply, even though there is not a lot of dialogue in that, you remember the dialogue. Larry. Robert McKee, the screenwriting teacher, said stories are the creative conversion of life itself into a more powerful, clearer, more meaningful experience. So powerful presentations start well, have stories. Stories with characters. At Lady and the Champs, which is the conference that I deliver with my world champion partners, we had a session, and we have lots of sessions there where people come up for mini coaching, and this is what we'll be doing this afternoon. And this young man, Stephen, was deaf, and he came on stage and he was talking about being a little boy and how difficult it was to be deaf. And although we were obviously empathetic, he was not making a good connection to the audience. So I said, "Why don't you try this?" And I whispered in his ear. Well, you know, I couldn't whisper too well. I gave him instructions. Hopefully so the audience didn't hear, so it would be a surprise when he said it. So he this time walked up and said, "Can you imagine how my parents felt when the doctor walked out into the waiting room and said, 'I hate to tell you, your beautiful little baby boy is deaf.'" We had so many parents in the audience who could connect emotionally to what that must be like to hear there is something wrong with your beautiful baby. So what I would recommend that you do is, if you're telling a story and for some reason it isn't working, your club, your coaches, your friends, you say, "I don't know what it is, but it isn't working." Try telling it from another person's point of view in the story. I was addressing a conference in celebration of apprenticeship. This was in Ohio, and going back 15 years. And they wanted a keynote speaker who had been successful and had had an apprenticeship, not been to college. So I was a perfect speaker, even though many of the audience members were from the construction industry and they certainly had apprenticeships. And after my keynote, I was conducting a breakout session on presentations and bringing people up, and I made the statement, there are no boring speeches, because there are no boring subjects. There are only boring speakers. So this big, hairy man with a big, hairy arm put his hand up and said, I speak on a boring subject. I said, well, a boring subject? Any boring speaker? He said, no, OSHA rules and regulations for 8 hours. Well, it's not that I admit that I'm wrong, but you know enough about me to know I'm going to go down fighting. So I said, now, can you give me one OSHA rule? He said, you have to wear your safety goggles. I said, tell me one story about one person who one day did not wear safety goggles. And he told me, and then I said, obviously some subjects are going to be more motivating, inspiring, and exciting than others. But the use of good examples and stories can make OSHA rules and regulations at least delivered in a way that can keep the audience awake. So I said, why don't you walk out and start this way? Can you imagine how you would feel if you were the 22-year-old wife and mother of 2, saying goodbye to your 24-year-old husband, who is the sole support for your family, as he's going to work on the construction site opposite Kroger on 22nd Street in Cleveland? And how do you feel when you get a call that he's drilling through a concrete wall to put a pipe, and a big chunk of concrete hits him in his arm and he's not wearing his safety goggles? When he comes home 2 days later from the hospital, you nurse him back to health, and now, how do you feel as he's going back to do the same job on the same construction site with only one good eye, and you're fairly confident he's not going to wear his safety goggles? Ladies and gentlemen, in the next 7 hours, you will be learning 127 rules and regulations. Many of them you know, and so do your crew. However, we need to enforce them for the health and welfare of your crew, and so the insurance claims are not disastrous and put us out of business. Can you see? You just take one or two and tell it from the point of view, not of the guy, of the wife and the person he loves the most. So every presentation needs good opening, good stories. It also needs, every presentation needs a simple structure. Every presentation needs to be tied around one central theme, one big idea. If I were to ask you, what is your presentation theme? And you give me 2 paragraphs, you can't clearly articulate it and the audience probably won't remember it. The question I like to ask all my coaching clients is, if you had one sentence rather than 45 minutes, what would you say? Now take part of that. So think of a presentation you might be giving, and then look at it from the point of view of the audience. So for example, the premise of this presentation is every Toastmaster can deliver powerful, persuasive, can prepare and present powerful, persuasive presentations. Now, if I had this as a conversation with you, you would say, well, that sounds good, how do I do it? Well, you already know. You need a good opening, And good stories and good structure. Can you see just very simply? Now it could be as simple as the cross-functional team recommends our company invest in diversity training. That's your central thing. Now you know the structure has to be. Why do you know that? How will it impact the company? What will it cost? And what are your recommended first steps? So you see behind every presentation of any length, what are your bullet points? I call them points of wisdom. But big idea and talking points, and then you develop it. Simple structure. Then every presentation is about the audience. There are two ways we connect to our audience. Intellectually and emotionally. Logic makes you think. Emotion makes you act. If you are delivering a presentation encouraging your management or your board of directors to invest $250,000 in a project that is not in this year's budget, you have to give them some very good analytical, logical reasons to do this. Now, the emotional connection comes three ways. Through eye contact. Now, if you are speaking around a boardroom table, you want piece of the pie, eye contact around everyone. If you're speaking to a larger audience like this, of course, you just have to make sure that there are people throughout the audience who feel you're actually looking at them. So you don't want to forget one area of the audience. So eye contact for a thought, an idea, or a phrase. And a good exercise you might want to do in your Toastmaster club is just sit around with everyone having their elbow like this on the table. And take it in turns, especially for the newer members, to come up front. And you keep your hand up, and the speaker has to look at every person for 3 seconds, making direct eye contact. And when you've looked at them, the hand goes down, and you would go around, and when everyone has done that, that's fine. Now you do it again with words. But first of all, you have to understand how to connect to the audience without words, and then you add your words. Because I tell you, when you're first doing this and focusing on it, you actually can't remember your words, which is why you start with no words. So eye contact, of course, stories. The other way you emotionally connect, and this will transform all your presentations. Guaranteed, take it in the bank, I never lied to you before. And this is what I call the I-you ratio. Look at how many times you say I compared to you. Now, it is not possible to speak and not say I. However, listen to the difference between this. I am going to tell you how to prepare and present powerful and persuasive presentations. Compared to, in the next 45 minutes, you will learn the 5 strategies to prepare and present powerful, persuasive presentations. This is all about you. See, I knew it coming in, and I'm going to know it going out. The assumption is you will go out knowing it as well. Might take a while to incorporate and to master it, but this is about you. Every time I hear a speaker stand up and say, what I would like to talk about is, and I think, I don't care what you want to talk about, I came here to learn about sales. And there's another, my favorite. What I would like to do first, and they've been speaking for 20 minutes. First is long gone. Now, look at these simple questions. How often have you failed? Do you remember why? Come back with me too. You know what it's like when. I wish you could have been with me. Let's go on a journey. These are words that, even though you might be talking about your own experience, you are including the audience. You are taking them with you. That is emotional connection. If you have a presentation that you give frequently, what you might want to do is have it transcribed, and then get a highlighter and underline all the I's. When I have clients send me their scripts of their presentations that have been transcribed, not sit down and write, but being transcribed, I go through and highlight them. And then look for ways that you can turn that around, or you don't have to use I at the beginning of the sentence. Because it's amazing how many scripts, the beginning of every paragraph and every sentence starts with I. Now, in our presentation this afternoon, when we're coaching you, mini coaching, you might only say 2 lines. But if we can show you how 2 lines can be improved, can you imagine when you do that with your entire speech? And as we're all working on exactly the same principles, even if you're not up here, you're learning the lessons, I promise you. These will be the simple techniques that we're looking at. And you might be thinking, and especially people who, some of you who've been in workshops with me and know me a lot, think, oh, you're suddenly picky, will this lead you? Does it make a difference? Many of the simple techniques by themselves, in isolation, might not make that much difference. But when you take dozens of teeny improvements and differences put together, practice consistently, that is how you go from good to great, to awesome, and then perhaps world class, and legend. Even if you can't dance, you could be an If you can dance, it's an advantage. Then, so we need to start, we need stories, we need structure, we need emotional connection. And when it comes to being persuasive, you have to make it you-focused. A lot of my life is, of course, working with sales teams. And what does the average sales presentation sound like? Good morning. I am Tom Smith from the Smith Company. Thank you for your time. We have been in business for 30 years, and this is what we do, and this is what we're known for, and these are who our clients are, and we'd love to do business with you. To which I would think most prospects would think, so what, who cares, what's in it for me? You're trying to sell me a product or a service that is very expensive, and you're sounding no better than somebody who's in here trying to sell us a $20 product. Compared to this, and raise your hand if you ever have to give sales presentations. Okay, good. You're at the right place at the right time. This is how I recommend you start. Now, obviously, the first meeting, you're finding out information. Now, this is working on the assumption you're going back for a more formal presentation. Congratulations. Now, what are they proud of? Your stock is up 3 points and most of the market's down. You're doing something right. Oh, congratulations on being one of the best employers in Chicago. Oh, congratulations, your advertising campaign is incredible. Oh, congratulations, it's obvious your core values work because everyone who interacted with me as I was walking through your building engaged and welcomed me. As simple as that. Never thank prospects for their time. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss how the Smith Company could well be your perfect partner to help you Fred has been very generous with his time and information preparing us for the meeting, and he said, you are mainly interested in bullet, bullet, bullet. Is there anything else you would like us to discuss? Now, you talk about your background, your experience through examples and casually, based on 15 years focusing in companies of your size. You do this conversationally throughout the presentation. Because look at it this way, if they walked away from that meeting saying, good, this is just what we want, send us a contract, does it matter if you told them about how many years you've been in business and the founder and how he came up with this unique technology? Of course. Focus on them. That's emotional connection. Then we have to, of course, get to specificity. Now, my friends here from the National Speakers Association, anyone who's ever been in one of my coaching camps knows I have a pet peeve. It is a word that has taken over our communications. It is the word STUFF. I am not even going to say it. It is debris. It has no value. So consider, if you talk about your products, your services, as STUFF, they have no value. Now, Darren and I deliver coaching camps, and at the back of one of them, I kept hearing people stand up and say, the one thing that will make you successful, or the one thing to do is, now understand the difference between conversation and conversationally sounding speaking. When you're giving a presentation, even if it is to 1,000 people, you want it to sound almost conversational, but it's tighter, more edited, more specific. You think about it in advance, and therefore you select the words that are most appropriate. And especially if you are giving the same stories or the same examples, you crafted them. In conversation, there's no agenda. You go back and forth. You don't think about it. You start sentences you don't finish. And at the back of our coaching camp, I was writing down, just taking notes on what people might say that would make it better sounding and more valuable, impactful, and just more valuable and exciting for the audience if they used a different word. So let's just take the sentence, one sentence, the one thing that will make you successful. And I don't think it's ever going to be one, but let's just take it. The one habit that will make you successful, the one strategy that will make you successful, the one discipline that will make you successful. Now, can you see each of those words? We're going to hire you to speak in our conference. What are you going to talk about? The 3 things to improve sales. How about the 3 strategies that are guaranteed to improve your sales? We devalue our products, services, and expertise by how we talk about it. Now raise your hand if you have salespeople who report to you, or if you are a salesperson who reports to somebody else. All right, can you imagine having someone come to you, or you go to your boss and say, oh, I just went to this networking event and I came back with a ton of business cards. Honey, you couldn't walk through the office door if you did. A ton of business cards. How do you manage someone who has a ton of business cards? No. Boss, I went to the networking event and I came back with 26 business cards. 6 of them were people we're already doing business with, and I promised to send them a brochure on our new product. 12 of them were wonderful people, but they really have no interest in our company. However, I made sure I had I delivered 2 perfectly scripted conversational lines that they would remember in case they ever met anybody who'd be interested in our company. And the rest, I lost track of the numbers, but however many years. These are potential leads, and today I'm going to make appointments to talk to them. That's specificity. A bunch is of grapes. You don't get a bunch of ideas from your Toastmaster conference. Perhaps you get dozens. Now, how do you improve your more formal presentations? You do it very simply by improving your everyday conversations. I have dozens of friends, literally dozens of friends, say, oh, I don't use these naughty words in presentations. I say, yes, you do. I hear you. You're just not aware of it. And I promise you, we are not aware of what we say. That's why I recommend, on phone calls, record your side of the conversation and listen to it. Because you will not improve your language if you are not aware of what words you frequently use. And I promise you, as soon as you wipe out one, there'll be another. We always have to keep doing this. So, specificity. And I like to think of it as razor-sharp specificity. If you have a presentation that you want to perfect, you might do it one story at a time in your Toastmaster Club, then put it together for longer presentations. And once you have the structure, the stories, the scripting, then you have to work on the delivery. You need to get it in your body. My brother is an internationally acclaimed rock and roll guitarist. According to Rolling Stone magazine, he was the 42nd best guitarist living or dead. Excuse the fact system. And I call him every day and say, what you doing, brother? And often he's practicing his guitar watching television. And the first time he said, oh, I'm watching a Steven Seagal movie, practicing. I said, well, you can't be focusing on the movie or the guitar if you're doing two things at once. And he said, well, what I'm doing is building the muscle memory in my hands. And what we are doing, we are building a muscle memory in our bodies. This is why every day, practice your stories. Every day, perhaps try a new opening that might work in a presentation. Just start with a few lines and see what happens from there. Here are some of my favorites. And you just talk to yourself. I sit on planes with my eyes closed, rehearsing. I get on the treadmill and rehearse. I walk through Golden Gate Park with my notes and rehearse. And it's very practical. When you're talking to yourself, nobody asks for change. You're just trying to get it in your body. Now here's some of my favorite opening lines. I wish you could have been there. Now that is a line that is going to transport the audience to a different time and place. Now again, it's one of your stories, but you are taking them with you. Now when you are talking about the past, you gesture or move to your right, the audience's left. If you are talking about the future, you are gesturing or moving to your left, the audience's right, because that's how we read. You don't think, is it that important? Well, there might be a disconnect with the audience. They might not know the rule, but they know there's something wrong. So if nothing else to remember, welcome to the January sales meeting as we reflect and celebrate last year's successes. Let's talk about this year's plan and the strategy of what we'll accomplish by the end of the year. That's a nice, easy way to remember. Past is your right, the audience is left. Still, I wish you could have been there. So if you were going to move, you'd move that way if you're going to gesture that way. Now, if you're going to say, today's date is April the 23rd, 27th, whereas the week gone. Well, here's one of my favorites. Imagine it is April 27, 2014. You're about to deliver a fabulous keynote speech. You've already cashed the check. You just bought the most expensive suit you've ever owned. You've just walked through the ballroom and seen your face in banners all over. Social media has been abuzz at how good this presentation is going to be. There are 5,000 people who've paid just to hear your speech. And then you take a moment and reflect. What was it that brought you here? And you remember, on April 27, 2013, a District 30 Toastmaster conference. You heard a dynamic woman tell you. You can prepare and present powerful, persuasive presentations when you have a good opening, good stories, good simple structure, razor-sharp specificity, and emotional connection. So that is a technique on selling the benefits of what you're teaching. Now, one of the problems you often have at conferences is to think, I keep getting booked to deliver an hour speech and they keep cutting my time to 40 minutes or 30 minutes. Have you ever had that experience? Well, this is why you have to organize your presentation in a way that you can literally, I'll say cut and paste, but what you mean, you can take it apart and deliver at the same time. You know, and just not have it look as if you shortchanged your presentation. One of my friends, Susan Rowan, best-selling author of How to Work a Room and 4 other books. She has a lot of personality, is great with the ad-libs, playing off the audience, and is very funny, so gets lots of laughter, and she often found she was running out of time. Her presentation was the roadblocks, the remedies, and the rewards of networking. And of course, the rewards are all the good, positive payoff. So one of our friends, who is another great speech coach, who helped me at the beginning of my career, said, Susan, why don't you restructure your presentation so it's one roadblock, one remedy, one reward, one roadblock, one remedy, one reward, and every segment is a tight chunk. So in some presentations, if you only have time for 2 chunks, they don't feel shortchanged. If you have 3 or 4, that's okay. So think of, for longer presentations, restructuring in an easy way. Now let's just say you have 5, well, let's say, what would you have, Joe? One of your presentations, come up here. So just, what would be a speech that you might give with multiple points?
Be a leadership star in 5 easy steps.
Perfect. Be a leadership star in 5 easy steps. So we know there are going to be 5 points of wisdom. Now, if Joe turns up and they say, we've got to cut you short 20 minutes, still, same thing, you can still keep your sweet for an extra 3 days. So what he can do after his opening story is introduce that there are 5 P's for leadership. This morning, you will hear the 3 most important. or the 3 most specific to you. Now, let's just say, suddenly, they say, we've got 5 more minutes. And this is secret. And you might even find this in a normal presentation. You say, you can say, oh, I just hear we have another 5 minutes. Would you like for us to do some Q&A? Or would you like to hear the first part of the 4th leadership P? Now, based on 35 years of experience, raise your hand if you think most audiences would want to do Q&A. So most of you think they'd rather hear at least a portion of Joe's P. Good. Because this is it. And that is usually, not always, but usually what will happen. Because they would rather hear from the expert than some of the pathetic questions that Now let's just say Joe has a book with 18 principles for leadership. So he might say in that case, we're going to have 4 leadership P's. Then he suddenly finds he has more time. Because, you know, it's audience response and different presentations with the same content. Just, they have to go with different things. Somehow you just find you have more time. Then you might say, we have time, we can do Q&A, or would you like a bonus P principle, leadership principle? People like bonuses. We all like something for free. So it's almost like that last point that they didn't think they were going to get is even more powerful. So is that helpful to you? And that's it. As my friend, have you ever heard Darren LaCroix speak? Yeah. Well, as my friend Darren LaCroix trained me to say, have you already received enough value from my presentation that gives me the right to give you a mini commercial on how you might take me home? Dancing is something he negotiates separately. On your seat or on your table, there's a form, very simple form. And the top package, you can see my handsome partners, Craig Valentine, Ed Tate, Darren LaCroix, and Patricia Fripp. You say, oh, you don't look any older than they do, Patricia. Well, I do have my photographs retouched. You did guess. We have this conference every year called Lady and the Champs. The next one will be February, and if you went to World Champs Live, you can actually get an early sign-up price, very reasonably for $197, act fast. But we have the 2011 and 2012 MP3s. One's on the thumb drive, one's on the CD. So that's 39 presentations with Fripp and the Champs for $99. If you want a lot of information about speaking, humor, getting started, developing good stories, that is a great investment. Then, for those of you who are really serious and want to sit down and create your keynote by next week, don't ask me how long it took to create the keynote by next week. That would be embarrassing. This is a real study program. There are 8 CDs. And a data disc with a 252-page workbook that you fill in the blanks. So certainly you listen in your car, but they're designed for you to sit down and listen and fill them in. So that you can have for the introductory price of $197. Then if you say, well, I don't care about the Champs, I don't want to work that hard to create my keynote, I just want a little song with you. Well, for $45, you can see You can get the Edge book that I wrote with the lady, with all the chaps, Speaker's Edge, a 90-minute CD on how you 10 little-known techniques to transform your speech. And that also has some mini interaction and a DVD of our presentation I delivered at an international Toastmaster convention to a large, beautiful, enthusiastic audience like yourself. So we have, if you're interested, come to the table after. You will check what you want. We'll give you a form. We'll give you what it needs. You give us your credit card. You take cash or check, whatever you like. Come back and then we give you that. I am happy. Now, of course, we do have your free Edge CD. However, we are giving it to you at 11:30. If you come to the table right after, you want to spend money. You want something free. Now, if you spend money, you'll have them free. The rest of you have to wait till 11:30. We don't want you bogging down our table unless you got a credit card. You have been a very kind and generous audience. And you remind me of 3 years ago. I was speaking at a district conference in San Jose, California, near where I live. I started with Larry Mariottini's story, and then, as soon as I finished my presentation, the really good-looking, red-headed district governor came up and said, "I dated Larry Mariottini after he got divorced." And he told me, "You transformed his life, you cut off his Elvis Presley sideburns. He raved even more than you did about what you did to him." She said, "You know where he is?" And I said, "No, I Googled, I searched, I tried to find him. Levi Strauss doesn't know where he is." And she said, "I am going to go out and find him." And would you believe, as fate would have it, the very day before she started her Google search, his kids had put up a Facebook page. And he was living in Chicago. So we both reconnected with him, and I was coming for another engagement. We had a dinner date, and he had to go to hospital for a little mini surgery. And believe me, I would love to say, will the handsome man in the 6th row stand up? However, he isn't. Unfortunately, Larry is with us in spirit, looking down because if he heard his name. But the point is, ladies and gentlemen, whenever possible, whenever you talk about someone from years ago, see if you can find them and get the end of the story. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Boy, Patricia Fripp, an amazing presentation. I hope you were taking notes. Wow. Thank you very much. Okay, just a quick couple of announcements. Boy, I'm still so excited, Gary. Quick announcements, please. If you already bought your lunch or dinner ticket, please make sure that you have your wristband or pick it up at the registration desk. If you are an award winner and are going to be walking the red carpet, or if you're a division governor, an area governor, please check with the hospitalities table sometime this morning so that we know that you're here. And for those who purchase our lunch or dinner tickets, we'll have VIP seating at the tables for Patricia Fripp's keynote lunch and also at Johnny Campbell's dinner. Now, the announcements are going to be the business meetings. Business meetings, 10 o'clock. We're going to have on room 8B. We'll have a business meeting with John Moore. We also have an educational session, Mission Impossible, which is McDonald room D. 10 o'clock, educational session, Spice Up Your Presentation Skills, Teddy Rodriguez in the Birchwood room. At 11, we're having a Savvy Social Networking with Sima Dao, ballroom D. And one quick thing, the education section, Youth Leadership, has been canceled. So we apologize if there's any inconvenience for anybody. It's going to come back in June at the TLI. And lunch will be in this room at 12:15. And after lunch, we ask you to take all your belongings with you, and then we're going to do the international speech. Y'all have your schedule. Have a great morning. Thank you.